Thank you. So now we would like to hear Christopher Helali, Party of Communists, USA.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christopher Helali. I'm the International Secretary for the Party of Communists USA and the Vice Chair of the National Preparatory Committee in preparation to go to the World Youth Festival in Sochi. Of course, this is a historic moment. Our party, throughout its history, and of course going back to the old Communist Party USA, have had many of our leaders study and travel to the Soviet Union, what was the Soviet Union, and now continue the tradition of international fraternity and building bonds with young people, with academics, with journalists, with people all over the world. And we believe, especially at this point in history, it is critical for young people around the world, regardless of their country's national policies, to be united in building a better world for the future. And we recognize, given the existential challenges that are facing our planet, the different countries in the world, and young people throughout the world, that it is vital for our participation and to build these ties. We look forward to our participation. We look forward to meeting with young people from all of the different countries. And of course, we want to show ultimately that as American citizens, we have every right to go and to travel to Russia, even at this difficult time between their bilateral relations. And we feel it is necessary in the spirit of peace and cooperation to be there and to show our solidarity with the people of Russia and with the young people around the world. Thank you very much.
So we are ready to talk more, and so we are ready to answer all your questions, and I encourage you, of course, to ask our speakers, who are, just as I mentioned, lucky people to go soon to Sochi. So please go ahead, of course.
Thank you very much on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association for doing this briefing. My name is Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. First, I'd like to know whether the U.S. government has approached any of you about your trip and said, no, you shouldn't be going. And could you tell us how many Americans you expect to be going to this conference, and whether you're expecting a lot of Western European to also be going? Thank you.
I have not been approached personally, but for other activist work, we have been approached. We've been stopped at the border. Many activists have been stopped at the border for traveling to Cuba, for traveling to Venezuela, for traveling to Nicaragua, for traveling like I have to the DPRK. And I believe it's very important to recognize that our participation at this event is something that is, for us, youth-to-youth diplomacy. It's an opportunity for us to meet with other young people and to be able to share our values and views and to hear their values and views. And so I don't think that there's anything in doing that that is criminal or should require us to be prosecuted for that. And I believe that some of these attacks that have happened by the U.S. government on different activists are politically motivated. And so we want to say that we won't be intimidated, as Caleb rightly pointed out, and that we want to be able to travel. We have a right to learn from others and to hear what they have to say and to hear their perspectives. And I think that's important, and we should have the right to share those perspectives and opinions with other students, with other young people, and with the broader American public.
Evelyn Leopold, I'm not unfamiliar with this kind of gathering because 100 years ago in East Berlin, when I was living in West Berlin, I attended one, which was not serious but very humorous. But anyway, my question to you is, how strong do you advocate human rights? Because I understand advocating them in this country and not being punished for going to these gatherings. But do you do any of it in Russia or in North Korea? I don't see how you, in that context, justify the invasion of Ukraine. I realize it's been going on in small steps for a number of years, but as someone who, I'm not a world expert, but I follow fascism quite carefully, including that in Russia, and I suppose you do too, given your history and where you come from. So I'm just curious if you could dwell on any of that. Good meeting you.
Human rights language and human rights discourse has been used as part of asymmetric warfare, and that's recognized within the legal community. I'm a law student currently, and so we recognize that human rights has been used as an instrument of to further different policies, especially in the West. That's not to say that there aren't issues in every country. We recognize that, of course. But we also recognize that they're also part of the internal affairs of certain countries, and that it's not our job as young people to go there and to tell the governments what they should or shouldn't do based on circumstances that we might not understand fully or that might not be fully apparent to us. And of course, we also recognize that our media, our press, our educational institutions and academic institutions conceal parts of history to further a certain narrative. We are very well aware of this, and there is not a uniform understanding within academic discourse or overall within human rights discourse as to many of these things. So understanding that, we will go, like Caleb said, with an open mind. We will be able to interact with people, and we will see for ourselves.
My name is Volodymyr Ichenko, National News Agency of Ukraine, Ukrinform. So, ma'am and gentlemen, do you feel comfortable communicating with representatives of a country that has attacked a neighboring state and bombs peaceful cities, including my native Kyiv, on a daily basis? Today, the Russian forces has fired 26 missiles at Ukraine. Is this somehow consistent with your youth policy of your organization? And Christopher, could you remind me of the beginning of the manifesto of Communist Party?
I would add that I have met with many Ukrainians over the past, not just for the past few years, for many years. In fact, after the coup in 2014, we met with trade unionists. We met with the Communist Party of Ukraine, which has now been outlawed, by the way. But we met with many of them, and we were able to hear from on the ground the contradictions and problems within Ukrainian society. And so we recognize, of course, the situation on the ground. Our party, of course, recognizes that history works in a different way than portrayed in the mass media. Of course, we have been protesting NATO since its inception as communists. But we recognize, of course, that this war isn't just a war between two nations. It's a war between one nation and a bloc of nations. And so I think that in that perspective, it's very important to understand and recognize what we view as the correct history and how we understand it, not only from the outside, but also in speaking to many Ukrainian communists and anti-fascists who, of course, don't like with Bandera's portrait being portrayed in public offices and government buildings.
But do you remember the beginning of the manifesto of the Communist Party? Do, quote, please.
You may check it later online if you'd like. So let's maybe proceed with the festival.
Not
and
a
without
communist.
political.
You're a
Thank you very
communist.
much for the question and the opportunity. So please go ahead.
My name is Nizar Aboud of Al Mayadeen Television in Lebanon. My question is regarding what's going on in Gaza today, Palestine, and I wonder whether any representative from the Palestinians will be attending this gathering, also from Israel, if any youth are coming to this. And how will this youth gathering be tackling the conflict which is going on for over 4 months now?
Our organizations, respectively, outside of this delegation to the Youth Festival, of course, are in support of Palestinian liberation. I have traveled to Lebanon and met with delegations there. I've traveled to Palestine and met with delegations there. We are hopefully will be returning in the fall to Lebanon to meet with our comrades there. And of course, we recognize that the Palestinian question and the ongoing genocide today that we see is a result of not only Zionist policy, but also the United States. So we recognize and implicate this country. And many of us are involved in our student life, in our campuses, amongst young people in demonstrations and protesting. And we recognize the great injustice that has been done to the Palestinian people. And of course, having been there, having seen it on the ground and having seen the apartheid situation, and from a legal perspective, listening to other lawyers and intellectuals on it, we recognize that it is a just cause and we will continue to fight for the Palestinian people.
Hi, Shidochi with China Central Television. Well, communication is always a good thing, but for a very obvious, seeing here, your opinions are not really mainstream American opinions. So you're going to have the conversation with people in those countries. And what's your plan to make those messages heard by Americans? And do you think you can make a difference?
Our opinions are suppressed on purpose. It's not like we are given open access and we're able to go and speak our minds whenever we want. For those of us who interact with the press on a regular basis, I myself, who I'm in Vermont and I ran for Congress, even as a congressional candidate, I was not given the same platform as major party candidates were, even though I ran on the communist line in 2020. So it's really important to understand that it's not that we don't want to get out there and don't want to speak. It's that our speech is severely curtailed and limited. And even we have been blocked from speaking in certain venues. We've been canceled as a result. But we will do whatever we can do, using whatever media that we can, to continue to promote different perspectives and ideas. I think that that's the rich tradition of this country.
Thank you, Stefano Vaccara, La Voce di New York and Ital Press Agency. First question, I have two questions. One, what is the age limit to participate in this event? And then I have a question about not to the communists or to whatever, to the Americans. They're here. I have a question on. We have a Wall Street Journal journalist, pretty young, I think, Ivan Gershkovich is 32 years old, I think. He's been in, now almost a year, he's been in prison, detained in Russia with accusation of being a spy. He was doing his job as a journalist. He's not had a trial yet, and we don't know how long it's going to be there. Now, when you have the possibility to be in Russia, what are you going to do to try to help a young journalist that he's detained in Russia at the moment?
May I just clarify about the first question? Are you planning to come as well? Are you planning to come as well? That's why, because you asked the age limit. So if you want to travel, so we can arrange that. So. Okay. No? So as far as we know, so yeah, the age limit is like the youth to participant is 35 years old. So all of the above, the people may go as speakers or consultants or something like that as experts.
I don't know once again, we are not privy to the information that the Russian government has, that the U.S. government has. We don't know the situation. I can't make an assessment on that, whether they're guilty or not. That's for a court of law to decide, ultimately. I mean, we don't know. I mean, there have been young people who have been spies before. There have been young people who've done great things, young people who've done horrible things. We don't know the situation. So it's up to the court. It's up to the court and the governments to decide what is the information, what do they know. For example, I've lived in China for 2 years without issue. I studied in China. I went to the DPRK without issue. I just think that sometimes if there are issues, there might be information that we are not privy to.
But we don't know. They didn't have the they are not telling us.
I also don't know. We can ask questions, which of course we will do, and that's, as critical thinkers, we will ask questions. But ultimately, that's beyond our pay grade, as they say.
Thank you very much. So, Alan, thank you very much. So, as far as I see, no questions more. Yeah. So, thank you for the attention, and just have a good day.